So welcome everybody. Just wanted to do a quick intro of our panelists today. We're talking with Christina Nock, who is the head of marketing at JobAdder. Leads a big team in there, doing a whole bunch of things from strategy to budgeting to social and everything else. Does a really good job, and also has been at an agency, Cox Patel, in the past as well, where she's been able to do a lot of great work there, and will be able to talk from experience about how to brand a recruitment agency through to, you know, an award-winning agency. And then we've got David Pagotto online as well, who is actually the managing director of Six Gun Digital, who has an extensive background in digital marketing. So any questions you have around SEO, websites, how do I get seen, definitely shoot across messages straight to him. He's also got a background in actually doing digital marketing workshops for business owners.
When we first opened our doors.
Since 1926.
Since 1978.
For 60 years.
For 75 years.
For over 80 years.
In 90 years.
For over 100 years. Nationwide has been on your side.
Restaurants have always been there for you.
Nissan has been with you through thick and thin.
We will do what we've always done.
Take care of people.
We're people.
People.
People. People.
People.
People and family.
Family.
Family. Family.
Family. Family.
Family.
Family.
Family. Families are families. Families.
Even now. Especially now. Especially now.
Right now.
Now more than ever.
More than ever.
Today, more than ever.
Today, more than ever.
In times like this.
At times like these.
During these difficult times.
In these troubled times.
Challenging times.
Trying times.
In these times of uncertainty.
During this time of great uncertainty.
During these uncertain times.
During these uncertain times.
In uncertain times.
In uncertain times. Uncertain times.
Unprecedented times.
Unprecedented times.
Unprecedented times.
This unprecedented moment in our history.
It's time of social distancing.
While things have slowed down.
I think the one thing that I noticed that I didn't particularly love, just at the very beginning when a lot of all of this stuff started coming to light, everyone was starting to wonder if they were going to have to be working from home. Some businesses were, other ones weren't. But I find a lot of companies were sending emails that was, oh, this is our response, just so you know. And I think it's kind of, you probably want to start from a place of, you know, like, are you okay? You know, what can we do to help you, rather than, oh, we're here for you, and here's a massive, really boring list of things that we're doing that no one really gives a shit about, that no one's going to read anyway. And I think it was well intentioned by companies, but I think that the tone of it was very much, oh, we're covering our own ass and this is what we're doing, rather than, you know, we really want to help you during these times. What can we do? And I think it was kind of a knee-jerk reaction. That's something that I noticed just at the very beginning. We're not seeing so much of that now. But I think the messages of, you know, we're here for you, these unprecedented times, I mean, it's kind of true. And I think doing that is better than just sort of going, oh, this is what we're doing, and kind of making it about you. That's kind of my take on it. What do you think, David?
Yeah, I would totally agree. I mean, I think there's an element of this where, you know, when it's stitched together in a comical YouTube video, it's funny to observe, you know, the way that everyone's using the same language in the same way. But there is that component of, you know, the hard sell isn't something that you want to be doing at the moment, you know, and these kind of terms and the way that they're using it and the way that they're kind of going down the brand building path as opposed to the direct sales path. There's value in that. But I think what you said in terms of, you know, it is definitely better to come out with a message that recognize that there is a situation and that we can help you by doing X, Y, and Z, and, you know, whatever that looks like, as opposed to marketing as per normal, as per, you know, business as usual. So I think there's a bit of a balance there.
Yeah. Agreed. And I think that actually takes us right straight into my next slide here. which is reacting to this crisis. What are marketers doing currently? So out of a study that's just been done by a couple of brands, they pulled together and ran a survey of marketers. 86% have actually delayed their campaigns completely. So basically we're stopping everything. We're stopping all of our advertising. We're stopping everything that we're posting. We're just laying low. 89% of consumers, however, say they actually approve of brand advertising where it helps people deal with the situation. And then 52% have said they approve of brands continuing their normal advertising. So if you're watching TV and you just see a normal car ad, they don't mind seeing that. They're not going to get upset about it. This is a quote from Sam Walton, the founder of Walmart. I was asked what I thought about the recession. I thought about it and decided not to take part.
I love that.
Yeah, it's good. Booms and recessions are part of life. It's part of owning a business. It's part of our marketing. How do we just navigate through it rather than going, okay, we're sort of victim to what's happened to us.
Yeah. The first thing that people need to be doing is getting very clear on the messaging that's going out for the business. So, that includes looking at anything that's pre-scheduled before this time. If you're using Buffer, Hootsuite, one of these scheduling softwares for your marketing or whatever that looks like, that's probably one of the first places you look at. If you're running a marketing calendar where you've got pre-planned campaigns, obviously you want to kind of assess that, make sure that everything that's going on in terms of messaging is what you want to be saying. And I think you want to be looking for, probably the quicker wins commercially. And that can break down into a few different things depending on the business, what you're going after. The quicker wins commercially don't necessarily need to be instant revenue. I mean, I think we're in a situation where, there's a lot of validity in having that brand value and looking at the top of the funnel as well as the bottom of the funnel. But if the resources begin to tighten on your side, then obviously that needs to be reflected in the marketing that you do. And where you can get those quicker wins faster is going to be a little bit more important. In terms of the spend, I think you mentioned, perfectly in the previous quote, recognizing, that the market conditions at the moment can mean, real step change for a business. And by step change, I mean, if businesses pivot correctly in this time, they can come out years in front of where they would have been. If they take the right marketing approach, if they go after the right specializations, if they go after the right areas in recruitment, I mean, as well as there being, a lot of problems out there, absolutely. There's also opportunity that needs to be reviewed. And if you look at a lot of the big organizations out there that have been in business for 50, 100, longer in terms of years, they've all gone through major crises. And in those times, the strong businesses have done probably more marketing than everyone else. And that's what's kind of separated them and created the step change in their business. So something to consider, but obviously you need to manage the resources that you have at the same time. So you can't spend what you don't have or what you can't readily use as well. And, the other thing is there's some very cost-effective ways to keep your name out there. It doesn't have to revolve around big spends. There's lots of things that can be done where, the budgets can be really minimized and you still make quite a big impact. So, marketing is something that's, in my mind, always sits a little bit more in the asset column than it does in the expense column. And during these kind of times, it's probably something to consider.
Great. And of all the things that we think you should start doing right away, Christine, we talk about, leading with your brand with empathy, figuring out how you can actually help at this time.
Yeah, for sure. So I think a lot of what we've been trying to do, so ever since all of this started, we basically scrapped everything that we had planned, and every single thing that we're doing, every single piece of content is how can we help? What do you need? What can we do to make this time easier for you? All of our clients are recruiters. Some of them are agency and some of them are in-house, but 90% of them are, having a tough time right now. So we've pivoted everything towards what can we do to help you. So I think part of the, leading your marketing with empathy is being attuned to the energy of the market. So you get a really good sense of this by going on LinkedIn. Our CEO, Brett, he also has a really good sense of this and he talks to us about this all the time. So, the first week or two of COVID, everyone's working from home. They're super hyped, energetic, positive. Even some people were losing their jobs and they're like, yeah, hashtag positive. Like, the first 2 weeks you were seeing lots of that. You could see lots and lots of energy. But, people, because they're working from home, they're kind of working, 24/7, so people start to burn out a little bit, so you'll see a little bit less activity. It's not that the mood has dropped, but the energy has dropped a little bit, so you want to meet that. At first everyone's really high energy, so you want your post to do that. You want to be sort of moving with the energy, and then when everyone starts to drop down, you still want to remain positive, but you don't want to be all the way up here when everyone's kind of sitting down here in the middle at the moment because they're a little bit tired. It might be like that for a week, and then it might go up again, depending. I think it's different for every country, depending on, the COVID stats and what's happening at the moment. But I think in the last probably nearly week, I think everyone's been a lot more positive because, we've been seeing, everyone's talking about the flattening of the curve and it's starting to happen. And people are starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Whereas even a week and a half ago, people were sort of trying to stay positive, but still didn't know, is this going to go on for 6 months? What's going to happen? It's scary. Sort of leading with empathy that's a really big part of it. But be ready to pivot, be ready to change your messaging and to change your tone overnight if that changes. Doesn't mean changing your brand message, like all of it. Doesn't mean saying completely different things. It just really subtle things like use of emojis, the use of exclamation points, just little things like that completely change the energy of what you're saying. And also on that point, this goes a little bit beyond marketing, but have a think about how you're responding to all of this, as a business, because the chances are you're a little bit nervous yourself. So if you've got clients coming to you, pretty much everyone here is in a business or runs a business. So you're trying to run a business through this time. How are you responding when people come to you and they say, hey, I'm really struggling. Can I take a break? Can you hold my account and have it ready for me when I'm ready to pay again? What you do right now is crucial because people will not forget. Everyone's really hypersensitive at the moment because they're scared. All of us in businesses, recruiters as well. There's that saying of, people won't remember what you said, but they'll remember how you made them feel. This is so much more important now because everyone's hypersensitive, everyone's on alert, everyone's a little bit scared. They will remember how you made them feel. So that's why leading with empathy, it comes back to that same point. That's why leading with empathy is so important. And just make sure, even if you feel a little bit scared, don't push that onto your clients and your candidates and sort of say, oh, no, well, you said you're going to pay me and you have to pay me because you're feeling a little bit scared, because people remember that. This is the most important time to be selfless. I think that's the number one thing.
I have to say, I've noticed a lot of this on LinkedIn, and it's, the great community of recruiters. Actually, it speaks to the fact that we are people, and we do want to help one another. I think it's been fantastic to see so many sort of jump up and offer their assistance to help employ people, hire people, share information, and it's been fantastic to see. The other thing that we've included in here as well is pivoting really quickly. And we note, as you were saying, Christine, just moving so fast to what the changing dynamics of the market and obviously the restrictions that are in place. Recruiters often will catch up and network with one another. That's one of the really key ways that you keep your network strong. How do we do that when we can't see each other anymore? And obviously we've got lots of webinars like this we can attend. But how do you move from that to an online environment?
So we had to do that overnight. When all of this started happening, we had a couple of really big events. So we were running events at our office. They were just starting to gain momentum. We were getting hundreds of people there. It was really exciting. And then all of this happened. And we went, oh God. So we had to move it online very, very quickly. But it actually ended up being really good because, we've got a big office in Sydney. So previously we could only invite people in Sydney there, but now it meant that pretty much all of APAC would be able to come along just based on the time zone. So in a way, it actually benefited us, but we just really quickly, although we'd done webinars in the past, we weren't a really webinar heavy business. That has definitely changed. And we just really quickly had to find the tech, just go, all right, great. We've got to really quickly let everyone know what's happening. We had to basically email everyone and say, guys, obviously because of everything that's happened, we're not able to hold the event face to face. This was during the time that you were still allowed to legally. So we could have still run the events, but, it comes back to leading with empathy, and it comes back to, I think you don't want to be seen to be bringing a lot of people into a room when it could be potentially dangerous just because, oh, well, we've already run the event and it's more convenient to do it this way. So you've got to think about, what it's saying as well, if you're just doing what's easier for you. yeah, so we really quickly pivoted to digital, and it is the best thing that we have ever done. We're basically getting so many more people to webinars, and I think it's a sign of the times as well. So you know, like coming over to maintaining positivity, everyone is craving that human connection. Everyone's working from home. Everyone's getting a lot less human connection than they were. Even if you live with someone at home, you know, you really crave like seeing people, speaking to people, that interaction. So, you know, our webinars have absolutely exploded. We, you know, pre-COVID times, the normal turnout for a webinar was about 30%. And that was normal because people would sign up and they go, oh, I'll just watch the recording later, whatever. But now, because everyone, you know, everyone wants that interaction, there's 150 people on here right now. So that's kind of like I'm not good at mathematics, but I'm going to say it's about 60, 70%. So pretty much all of our webinars, we're now looking at minimum 50% turnout. So it's one of those things that, yes, we had to pivot quickly, but because we did, we're seeing huge benefit, you know, because people really want this stuff right now. Yeah.
And as you said, it's so much more easier to access. So you don't have to go into, you know, as a recruiter and you've got a database of your clients or your candidates, you know, a specific type of candidate maybe, having it, you know, setting up something like a quick webinar, ask me any questions about how, you know, what it's like in the hiring space right now, how can I help you, how can I give you tips, and just make it even a live kind of event that will engage them probably even more now as well than trying to hold a physical event where they would have had to come after work and try to find their way on the train and all of that kind of stuff. They can just log in. So, I mean, if anybody's up for that, try that with your candidates. I think they'll really appreciate it. And what you were just saying just now, it leads again to this next slide here, which is, you know, staying connected, because there is that craving for human connection right now.
Yeah, I mean, tactically, you know, things like email, things like organic social media. And I mean, those things aren't going to cost any money to execute either, which is always very nice. Christine already touched on digital events, just like this one. I mean, people, you know, have that desire to, you know, see people face to face and hear people talk about things that they're interested in and learn some things. So, you know, all of those kind of things that can be done on the organic level, you know, email, organic social, digital events, all this kind of stuff to keep the name out there of the business is a very good first port of call.
So yeah, I think definitely I agree with David in terms of like people are craving that human connection and contact. So that's why, you know, a lot of these digital events are taking off. So now is actually the perfect time to build communities, like David's saying, you know, organic social media. This is a really, really good time for engagement. After one of our webinars, we posted something. It was a Greg Savage webinar and he was wearing one of our Make Recruitment Great Again hats. And afterwards we ran a social media competition that was, you know, what writing do you think should be on Greg's hat instead? Right now it says Make Recruitment Great Again. And honestly, normally it's so hard to get people to engage in this stuff. And even when we did it, I was like, shit, I don't think anyone's going to do this. I hope this doesn't fall flat on its face. But we had like 150 comments on this thing. And there were people who weren't even on the webinar who were commenting, like making jokes, and everyone's responding to each other. And I was like, honestly, this is the best time to be getting some of this engagement as well. And it doesn't have to be polished and perfect. Don't be afraid to be human as well. I think the biggest thing that I realized when I started running these webinars is I'd get so nervous. I'm like, oh my God, there's all these people here. I've got to be perfect. No one expects that at the moment. You know, you might have a dog run through, you know, you might have one of your kids in the background, and, you know, everyone's kind of in the same boat at the moment. And I think, you know, if something goes wrong, if there's a connection issue, you just kind of address it and you move on. You know, it's okay. It happens all the time. And I think as soon as I took that pressure off myself, to, you know, run this perfect seamless webinar or, you know, any other piece of content, I think that it just became so much easier when I stopped kind of expecting that, because people don't expect that right now. You know, they really just want that human connection.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be that really slick kind of, you know, professional video anymore. We are seeing so many brands just going, okay, here's myself, here I am, the CEO or whatever, in my home doing a 5-minute update or whatever it might be, and all the glam has kind of been taken away. So
yeah, that being said, I do have some feelings about when people post on LinkedIn with a video like this. That could probably have ended up being a text post. I will say that is something that I do feel strongly about. But I do agree. It doesn't have to be polished. iPhone's a really good one.
Yeah, it's a really good one too, because you want to make sure that you're in a lighted space, a bright space. I've seen people sort of sitting in the dark, in the shadows, like they're like they're an informant on the Four Corners or something like that, and they're like shadowed out. Like you want to make sure that you can see clearly, and you've got sort of a nice clean area that you're working with. So some little side tips there. So the next part, we just wanted to gather a few ideas, because we know that this is it's going to be industry specific. It's going to be specific to you as a business owner as well. But how do you identify? How can we identify some of these opportunities that are in the market right now? Right now, what's happening? So we're seeing perm placements dropping. And from what a lot of the industry experts are telling us at the moment as well, now is the time that people are hiring in shorter terms. So whether that's temping jobs or in certain labour hire industries where they're just going, we need 2,000 people for all of our cold stores right now. We're hiring such and such. How do you move in and get into those industries? Or if you're sort of partway there, how do you then build up a capability to take on sort of more temping roles if that's not what you have done traditionally? It's really important to look at things like that. If you have an advantage in a particular sector, how do you drive that specialization even more? So David, do you want to talk a little bit about that? Like, as a business, how do you identify, well, this is who I am, this is what I do?
Well, I think, maybe going back to even the start of this kind of conversation around, how to identify, what is actually an opportunity out there at the moment that people can be targeting, kind of as a first thing.
Yes.
I mean, I think most people listening to this would have a pretty good understanding of that, right? Like, we've gone through this long enough to know, okay, which industries are going well, which ones aren't. There's that kind of common sense vibe. Your essential retail like supermarkets, remote IT support, tech companies that have SaaS platforms suitable for remote work, office supplies, particularly where they supply home office bits and pieces, central services like accountants for businesses, anything in the healthcare sector seems to be booming at the moment. All of these kind of things, right? Mm-hmm. So, and something to keep an eye on, from the search perspective, is to have a look at Google Trends occasionally. If you want to validate something and make sure that it is something that's getting a lot of traction in terms of people looking for jobs, perhaps, or clients looking for placements, having a look at Google Trends and typing in some of these keywords and seeing the spikes, or perhaps not the spikes, is a really good way to validate that. So firstly, I think you want to have a good understanding and awareness of where the opportunities really lie and where that overlays with your existing business in terms of specialization. If you do have any pockets within that, obviously they're areas to focus on now more than any other time. And then, that probably jumps back to something that we talked about a little bit earlier around, making a pivot perhaps towards areas that are a little bit more friendly in this space. So if you've historically had, been focused on areas that aren't very hot at the moment, it might be a good opportunity to say, look, we've always considered going down the path of IT. We've never really focused on it massively, but we've always thought about it because we've got connections and we've had a few, people interested over the years. Maybe it's a good time now to kind of focus on that more than any other sector. So that's how I would approach it.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the following points actually is that too. So if you are a perm business, or even in temping, so there's a little bit of a difference between sort of temping, perm, and contracting as well. But imagine if you're able to open up a contracting book now, when so many businesses are only looking to place contractors, if they're going to place anybody at all, or if they're still going through their digital transformation projects or whatever it might be, where they're still needing that staff, but they're looking for skilled, like highly skilled sort of IT project managers, as an example. Are you able to enter that sort of lucrative space and make the most of it there? Or if you're already there, making sure that you're making the most of those relationships, because that is an area that's actually it's doing okay compared to obviously perm, and that's an area that we at Encore do. We actually help with that. So if anybody's interested, pop us a line, because we can help you set that side of your business up as well. So there are opportunities. Another one that got in there is if you're the owner of the business, why don't you start looking into building your brand? Because right now, yes, it's great to have your company brand, but if you're a small scale business and you've got 100 followers on LinkedIn, right now is probably not the best time to try and gain those followings on your own page as much as it is to start building your personal profile. And that can lead to other things too, where you're perhaps you're doing consulting on the side or whatever it is while there may be a hold in placements. Because you have that experience, you've got that knowledge, so you can sort of present yourself to still have a consulting business regardless of if you're placing. So I thought that's probably a good one if you're a small-time recruiter. And then also invest in partnerships at the moment is a really big one, because that is going to boost your networks. And I noticed, Christine, that's something that you guys are doing heavily at the moment. And I think it's working for us too. What kind of impact is that having on you guys?
Yeah, so it's been awesome. I just shared in the chat, just when you were talking about, pivoting to temp. We actually did a webinar with Greg Savage and Christy, who is our head of temp and high volume here at JobAdder. And there were a lot of perm consultants who were going on there sort of saying, temp, according to Greg Savage, has sort of always been quite recession proof, which he's got a really good point there. So that's something that's recorded, that's available on demand. And, in terms of the partnerships, at the moment we're running on a smaller team than we're used to in marketing here at JobAdder. So, we don't necessarily have the time. We're pumping out about 3 webinars a week. We don't have the time to sit there and necessarily create all of that content, and you probably don't either. And that's okay. You don't have to do it all on your own. If you have a think about partnerships. So for example, for us, some of our partners would be other companies who service, the same clients that we do. So for example, Encore, and XREF, and, some of these other companies that are in the same industry. So often we will work together. Just as an example, we're speaking with Telligent, who are one of our, they do psychometric testing. So they're one of our partners over in New Zealand. And they're basically coming up with this content. It's about how to engage candidates remotely using gamification. That's something that is really their area of expertise. So, we're leveraging their area of expertise. We're saying, great, can you put together this great content? That's not really my area. But then I'm enabling it. So I'm saying, great, I can do a landing page. I can run it on GoToWebinar. So I'm providing the infrastructure for that because that's my leverage. I know that I can do that because that's something that we're easily able to do. And then we find partners who sort of are missing that piece, but, are really heavy on the knowledge side, but they don't know how to share it. So I think it's often all about leverage. You kind of go, okay, what is it that I can offer? Whether it's even one of our clients, we could do webinars with our clients too, to reach a larger audience. And you say, okay, what is it that I have to offer? And what's the missing piece for me that I'm either not able to, or that I don't have the time to produce, that they can fill in that blank and we can work together and create something awesome. I think that's the biggest thing that I've realized is it's all about leverage. Like, what is the leverage that you have? How can you help people? And then, if you're missing a piece, who can you go to? And then, you can both invite all of your contacts and you've just doubled the amount of people who are going to be there. So that's really how we've sort of been leveraging our partnerships, and it's been really good.
Yeah, fantastic. This is going to be a really short one, but this slide really, it's about bringing it back to sort of the fundamentals of marketing. And I just wanted to run through it because regardless of whether you're in a crisis at the moment, people are not buying and all that kind of stuff, it's still important to formulate what this is for your business. So it comes down to, I think, is understanding why you are in business. If you're a business owner online today, why did you start? What is that motivator for you? And what kind of, if anyone has heard of Simon Sinek and all the videos that he does about understanding your why, I think that's really important as a business owner. But then as a marketer, tapping into that for your business as well, and making sure that whatever ways you're pivoting as a business, you're still kind of remaining true to that purpose. And then it comes down to, these 4 elements for me, which is targeting, who are you trying to reach out to, and identifying those key personas is what we call them. That's just creating a profile of who they are, what their job title is, what their psychographic kind of information is, their demographic information, what's their kind of sphere of influence around them, really understanding what their pain points are as well. and then sharing that within your team. So whether you're a small business or a large business, you can find that you can just run through so many marketing campaign ideas from all sides of the organization, but you can tend to get lost in all of that if you don't have these formulated for everybody. So who are your actual ideal clients, and what do they look like? And then how are you going to position yourself in this market? Which is basically how are you going to differentiate yourself? As David spoke about earlier, understanding how you're specializing in. So is it this industry? Is it that industry? This is where we really are key. We know who our clients are. We know who our candidates are. We know when they're out of work. We know that who's looking. We've really got that closeness with our talent pool. How are you going to communicate that? So do they prefer to be communicated in certain ways? It's good to have that down as well. And then coming up with the content that is, and David, can you talk a little bit about content, where it's how do you decide on what types of content will resonate, in terms of that funnel you mentioned just earlier about the decision making?
Yeah, I mean, you want to balance the resources that you've got with the content that's going to have the outcome that you're looking for ultimately. Now, we're also in a tricky situation where focusing everything you've got on the bottom of the funnel, which is, closer to that kind of sales point, is a little bit tricky because people don't really want to be sold at the moment either. So, what I would say is where you can use your resources effectively to create, whether it be podcast webinar, whether it be, a set of organic social posts that go out. It might be a blog post. It might be some videos with your team. Like you mentioned before, you don't have to aim for, these perfect videos that get produced. You can do things that are pretty ad hoc, as long as your face isn't too close to the camera, as Christine mentioned. I think that's a good piece of advice. So
the under chin.
Yeah, the under chin shot. So what I would say is, use whatever resources you've got to kind of dig into the areas that are going to have the best outcome for you, which might be, if you're an agency, for example, that's historically focused on some more challenging, some industries that are now kind of a little bit more challenging, it might be around creating content around some of the new industries you'd like to get into over the next 6 months as a part of this, for example, as opposed to, business as usual content. So it ultimately depends on the goal. But if you think strategically about it and how that can be rolled out, a lot of these, ways of creating content are very affordable, in terms of creating a video on your laptop, putting it out there on LinkedIn, for example. It's very easy to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a couple of points in this webinar that actually can be their own webinars. So if we're kind of going through some of these stuff, but we can really dive a lot deeper into these with a lot more detail. And I'm more than happy to roll those out if people want them. But yeah, I think this is one of those aspects of, really getting down deep into how you decide what you're producing. So there's definitely more information around that. Okay, so maybe we can just kind of whiz through this stuff, because it's really all stuff that we are doing, aren't we? We've got our email, we've got our databases. Are we running ads? Should we be running ads, David? What can we do on our website around SEO? So
look, I think on the ad side of things, that's where you're going to be spending marketing resource in terms of dollars. So you want to be as efficient there as possible. I'd consider using things like remarketing. So when people, visit your website, for example, then you can follow them around with a particular message, or creating custom audiences. So for example, you can upload your, database into Facebook, for example, and market to those people specifically. So there's a few things you can do there that's very, very targeted. And that's where you're going to get a really good ROI on whatever spend that you are spending. So from an ads perspective, I'd look at, where are the quickest wins in terms of keeping it lean. Remarketing is definitely going to play into that space. And it's also it can be a little bit of a softer sell, which I think is a great thing at the moment.
And just if anybody's not aware, remarketing really is just going back to the people who have visited your site. Maybe they've seen an ad for a role or whatever. They've come to your site or they've browsed through. You can actually reach them again when they've left the site and gone elsewhere.
Yeah, I was chatting to David about this morning. At the moment, the ads of that nature that we're doing, they're very soft sell, and it's really just to get top of the funnel leads to our content, to our webinars. It's going back to, we've changed our whole attitude, and you've got to make sure that if on organic social, your attitude is very much, how can I help you? Let me help you. Let's see what you need. You just want to make sure that your ads are matching that as well, because you don't want to be getting these quite, very direct and aggressive ads following you after you've been on the website, but you've got the different tone on your organic social. So you just want to make sure, like David was saying, if you've got things that were planned or things that were already running, just have a look at what's already running and just make sure that it really matches, how you want to be perceived and how you want to be talking to people today. But all of ours is just trying to get people to our content. So it's all very, very top of the funnel at the moment.
Anything on your websites, SEO or anything like that that we can add? I mean, other than the basics, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, look, I could talk about SEO for another 5 hours, but to go through probably some of the basics in terms of what people should definitely be doing in this time would be, consider creating separate pages for different specializations, industries, and job types. That's probably one of the biggest areas. In the smaller recruiters out there, they have a basic WordPress website, for example, and they haven't set up, pages for all of the different types of search terms that would attract people to the website. And it's a good time to kind of have a little bit of a look at that and refresh that based on perhaps some of the new targets that you want to be going after. And then that can tie into, your organic social, for example, your email, for example, because you've got something, you've got a page to send people to as well. So tie into that. I'd also focus on creating, high value content on those particular pages, content that's entirely unique. There's no copying and pasting, none of that kind of stuff. Content that's very engaging to a user and really adds value. That's going to be something else to think about. A little bit more technically, trying to attract as many backlinks as possible to your website. You can do that in a number of different ways, but being active in a particular community is a great way to start. Leveraging existing connections that you've got is a good way to start. Adding to, if you have any connections in the space in terms of, businesses that are you work alongside, creating some assets with them, having them hosted on their website, you having it hosted on your website. There's the opportunity to get backlinks and things like that through relationships such as that. And then, consider some longer form content marketing pieces on the website if you've got the resources for that as well. In terms of, content that is very topical for the moment. There's going to be business owners that are in industries that are looking to hire because they've got a massive surge in their business and they might need a little bit of a guide around it or something like that. So there's all sorts of things you can do in the SEO space, but they're probably some of the bigger kind of top level philosophical components to consider from an SEO point of view.
And some really good how-to educational content right now is probably going to get consumed a lot more in this environment that we're in crisis mode, right? So people want to see, some advice pieces, some, things that they can relate to as well.
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
Which brings me to the social side of things too. So how do you harness that now that we're also around that?
Now is the best time for social. Like we've been saying, like social media and webinars, everyone's craving that human connection that they used to get every day without really thinking about it. So now that's been taken away, people really want it. So stay active on social media. If you don't have the resources to be creating a lot of your content, that's okay. You can still be sharing content that you think will help. And, being active on LinkedIn isn't only about posting either. It can be, you're engaging with other posts and you're talking with other people and connecting with other people. So it doesn't have to be just broadcasting, just like post, and just waiting for people to kind of interact with it. It really goes both ways. Encourage your employees to go on social media as well. So, with us as a marketing team, we are pumping out so much content at the moment that we actually, there's almost too much. So if all of it goes through our company page, we're really filling up the feed. There's quite a lot going out at the moment. And even with email, you've got a certain percentage of email open rate and you don't want to be emailing people too often. So we really harness employee advocacy by finding out, which of our salespeople or which of our teams, for example, would have connections that would be interested in this particular webinar or this particular ebook, whether they look after the in-house market or the recruitment agency market. So we find people who will have relevant followers, and we'll ask them to share it as well and give their point of view. So that's actually a really important one for increasing your reach, and that's free as well. You don't need to pay for that. And we've already touched on this, but yeah, just the social media posts that have already been scheduled or any other marketing that's already being scheduled. Just make sure that it's in line with, you know, with the tone that you want to be presenting at the moment.
Yeah, just on that too, is LinkedIn as an algorithm is actually pushing engagement on LinkedIn so much more, giving it a lot more priority if you're posting as a personal profile as opposed to your company anyway. So really leverage that as much as you can.
Yeah, Carolyn from Aquint just wrote, she said they use the Bamboo platform, BAMBU, to help our employees share content. I'll actually talk to you about that offline, Carolyn, because we were looking at that. So I'd be interested to know how that goes. So if you've got a slightly bigger team, that's actually software that can enable your employees to really easily share their own version of content. So that can be useful as well if you've got a bigger team.
We're coming towards the end of this and I'd really love to open it up. We basically just have one more slide just to say, if you're going to measure the stuff that you're doing, it is literally, are you reaching the right people at this moment? Because you want to make sure that that's tying back to your end goal, your end target profiles. And then sort of, are they engaging with it? So in the next sort of 2 to 3 months, I reckon you can have maybe a nice little plan going, but it's really difficult at this time to be looking beyond 6 months, I would say, in terms of marketing activity. So really, as you said, listening to the audience and your target market and their energy. Can we maybe jump to a couple of questions really quickly then, Christina? Maybe we'll just hang on for a couple of minutes and answer some questions.
Yeah, so if anyone wants to send through any questions that they have, I'm just coming through. Raj said he was lucky enough to win our social media competition. Hello, Raj. And Luke said, I think it's important in times like this to not have all your eggs in one basket. Business owners need to diversify in any way possible. Loving the advice from David and Christina. Thanks, Luke. So David, this one's for you. Kevin said, can you give some cost-effective marketing tips?
I would definitely say, you know, email is always the first thing. If you've got a database, it doesn't cost, other than, you know, the software, whatever you're using, other than that cost, you know, you can send out as many emails as you like. So if costs are concerned, I'd focus on email first. The second thing I'd look at would be organic social, because again, you can get a lot of good brand value at the moment in terms of what's there. Mm-hmm. If you were to move towards things that are going to cost, I'd look at, you know, remarketing first, custom audiences first, in terms of how, you know, you're getting in front of that audience. So it's, you know, very, very specific. And then, you know, from there, it starts probably getting a little bit more expensive, and the upfront costs start getting a little bit more and more. So I'd start with those things before anything else is really done.
Another one for you, David. So Kim has asked, is there a crash course on uploading database candidates to Facebook, as David mentioned?
Yeah, there would be. And what I might do is I can find really good link to a blog post on that and send it through.
Yep, that's awesome. So Fiona has asked, I think this is something we can probably both touch on. How do you suggest changing industries where you have no brand presence and where there are recruiters already dominating that industry, you know, for example, IT? I think probably the first step in my mind would probably be, like we were talking about, producing content. So if you're producing content around that industry that really demonstrates that you know that space, that you know what you're talking about, that's what people want to see. You know, if you sit there and you say, well, I know IT, you know, you need to sort of back it up. So I think if you produce content that sort of demonstrates that you understand the market, I think that's probably the first step. What do you think, David?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I mean, I would say, you know, tactically, I'd look at, you know, creating content and those pages on your website, and that forms that kind of hub. And then looking at creating, you know, content that might go onto social, partnerships with other people. It might mean you jump on and do a webinar and talk about it a little bit. All of that kind of stuff is really where it's going to happen. And if you don't have a foothold in a particular industry, it might take a little bit of time, of course. So particularly without a big paid budget to kind of just go at it really, really hard. So, you know, you have to be a little bit patient and say, look, if we're going to move into this industry, we're going to create a page on the website. We're going to create a supporting blog post. We're going to have, you know, a month worth of organic posts that go out socially. And we're going to send out an email to our existing clients that might not be aware that we do this. And, some of them have changed positions and what have you, which means there might be some interest that way. So that's how I definitely approach it.
Yep. Yeah, awesome. Okay, so does anyone have any more questions? So Paula said, can I please get a copy of how to upload candidate database to Facebook, please? We'll make sure, David will make sure that you send that through to everyone, because it sounds like everyone's definitely interested in that one.
I've put through a blog post
Oh, perfect.
in the
chat,
and that should probably go through it. And if that's just something I quickly found now, but if I'll do a little bit more research and maybe send out something later as well.
Yep. We just got another one through. I think we kind of half covered this one. So they said, what if we work in a company that's been in a specific industry for many years, yet has no presence? So how do we improve this? What would you say for that, David?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tricky situation. It's almost, you probably wanted to start doing marketing 5 years ago. That's probably the answer.
I guess it's never too late to start, though, is it?
That's right. It is never
yeah.
I love this quote, which is the best time to start planting a tree was 20 years ago, and the next best time is now.
That's right.
And I love that, because sometimes you do feel like, oh, should have done this ages ago, but you know what, we're in it, and it's better to start now than again another year from now and go, oh, I should have. I should have started with that. So.
What I would say to that as well is, when I started marketing at Cox Patel had been around for 20 years. And it's not that no one knew who they were. They did, predominantly business support, and there was a good amount of, respect for the company. It's a boutique, about 20 consultants. But, we weren't really known as, forward thinking, savvy, on social media, like really kind of fun. Like, we didn't really have that. So that's something that I started, and it took me a couple of years, but I really turned it around, because not that many companies were on social at the time. We're talking probably about 5 years ago now, and I looked at who was doing things really well. So have a look at your space. Who do you think's doing it really well? You don't necessarily want to copy what they're doing, but you might look at what they're doing and go, oh, there's one thing that I've noticed that no one in this space is doing, and that's something that I'd be really good at. So you can kind of use that. It is a slow burn. It does take a little while, but I looked at the work of Carolyn Hines, who's on today. Carolyn's from Firebrand. At that time, People to People were doing some really good stuff, and there wasn't a whole lot else at that time. So because not that many people were in that space, we were able to really quickly kind of really make ourselves noticed. And we were using iPhones. We were using like scrappy kind of stuff, but because we were showing humor and we were being kind of funny, and I was kind of making a joke about the fact that our marketing was so crap using this iPhone, and I was sort of played on that a little bit, and I made it a little bit funny, and that was the angle that we decided to take to be memorable, and to really stand out. Raj has said, a quote that sticks in my head ever since hearing it was, best known beats best. And I've seen this example, that's like a tongue twister, and I've seen this example in real life many times. So it keeps pushing me to really focus on personal branding and getting my message out there, but also working hard at being the best. That's awesome.
Yeah. A question someone asked around uploading a custom list to LinkedIn as well as Facebook, and I believe you can do that. So what I might do is put together a couple of good resources to read through and send it out to everyone in the group.
And we might leave it there for now. So thank you everyone who's hung on to the end of this. And yes, we will be sending everything out. Please let us know if you have any further questions. Email marketing@encoreservices.com. Otherwise, just email myself, Christine, or David directly. Even if you'd like to connect with us on LinkedIn, we'd love to help some more. And if we can think of there's enough stuff to run another one in more detail, we will. But for now, thanks so much for tuning in.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Guys.